A narcissist's worst nightmare isn't just someone who walks away, it's a super empath. Most people think that once you leave a toxic person, the story ends. But the super empath represents a level of evolution that a narcissist truly fears. This is a person who has moved past the stage of being a people pleaser and has entered a state of radical self-mastery. They have done the hard work of healing their childhood wounds and have emerged with a deep, unshakable sense of self-love. This isn't the kind of self-love you see in a social media post. It's a grounded, practical armor that makes them immune to the typical guilt trips and manipulation tactics that usually work on others. They have anchored themselves in ironclad boundaries that don't bend for anyone, and they have clearly defined their non-negotiables, the things they will never tolerate again. When a narcissist's fragile, shame-driven ego collides with a super empath's radical self-truth, it's not just a simple disagreement, it's a total system failure for the narcissist. The narcissist relies on your confusion, your doubt, and your willingness to compromise your own reality to keep them happy. But a super empath doesn't doubt their own reality. They see the narcissist's behavior with X-ray vision, looking right through the masks and the lies. Because the super empath is no longer seeking validation from the outside, the narcissist loses their only bargaining chip. The narcissist doesn't just lose the argument, they begin to crumble because their usual power plays bounce right off the empath's shield of truth. Today, we're breaking down the 5 specific ways a super empath systematically dismantles a narcissist's power. If you're ready to stop being a victim and start turning your sensitivity into your greatest weapon, hit subscribe to help us spread this vital awareness. Let's dive deep into the mechanics of how a super empath annihilates the narcissistic self. The narcissist operates on a foundational delusion, the belief that they are fundamentally superior and deserve everything while offering absolutely nothing in return. They walk into every room and every relationship with a silent contract that expects your total compliance, your constant attention, and your sacrifice, regardless of the cost to your mental or physical health. To them, your needs are irrelevant, and your boundaries are just obstacles to be steamrolled. They view you as an extension of themselves rather than a person with your own rights. This sense of entitlement is the oxygen they breathe. They truly believe the world owes them special treatment, and they feel personally attacked if they don't get it. A super empath destroys this fantasy by doing something most people are too afraid to do. They question the narcissist without a shred of fear. While the unhealed empath might stay quiet to keep the peace, the super empath knows that peace kept at the expense of your soul is no peace at all. They cannot and will not tolerate injustice. Because they are grounded in their own value, they call out the behavior the very moment it happens. If a narcissist demands something unreasonable, the super empath doesn't make excuses for them. They simply ask, "Why do you think you're entitled to that?" This directness is like a bucket of ice water to a narcissist's ego. By refusing to play the role of the submissive, quiet source of supply, the super empath effectively severs the narcissist's sense of control. They don't get loud, they don't get frantic, and they don't get emotional, which is what the narcissist wants. Instead, they remain cold and factual. When the super empath stops feeding the entitlement by saying no and standing by it, the narcissist's power structure collapses. The narcissist realizes they are dealing with someone who cannot be bullied or bought. And that is exactly when the super empath wins. By standing firm, they prove that the narcissist's authority is nothing more than a house of cards waiting for someone brave enough to blow it down. Narcissists are the ultimate sympathy vampires. They don't just want your attention, they want to feed on your emotional energy until you are completely drained. They are masters of psychological warfare, using tools like passive aggression, the silent treatment, and victim playing to keep you off balance. When a narcissist senses they are losing control, They immediately flip the script to make themselves look like the one who is suffering. They will weaponize their pain or a crisis to guilt trip you into dropping your guard. While a standard empath might be lured in by a fake plea for help because their natural instinct is to heal and fix, a super empath sees the sharp hook hidden behind the bait every single time. They don't just watch the performance, they see the director behind the scenes. A super empath has developed a psychological radar that recognizes manipulation in real time. They can feel the shift in the air when a narcissist starts a gaslighting campaign or tries to bait them into an argument. Instead of falling into the trap and getting defensive, the super empath simply refuses to provide the emotional reaction the narcissist is starving for. They know that your anger, your tears, and even your explanations are all supply to a toxic person. By staying incredibly calm and keeping their face like a blank slate, the super empath starves the vampire. They maintain firm, unshakable boundaries that act as a filter, ensuring their natural kindness and empathy are reserved only for those who are genuine. By refusing to engage in the game, they ensure that their greatest gift, their heart, can never be used as a weapon against them again. A narcissist's entire existence is built on a foundation of sand, a fragile, false self that requires a constant stream of external validation just to stay upright. They are like a balloon that needs to be pumped with praise, admiration, and the feeling of being better than everyone else every single day. Without that supply, they deflate into a state of deep, hidden shame. To survive, the narcissist creates a mental hierarchy where they sit on a self-appointed throne at the very top, looking down on everyone else. They truly believe they are special, untouchable, and entitled to a different set of rules. However, the super empath is the one person who refuses to even look at that throne, let alone bow to it. This is a direct, stinging insult to the narcissist's entire worldview. While the rest of the world might get intimidated by the narcissist's bravado or fancy masks, the super empath sees right through the smoke and mirrors to the small, insecure person hiding behind the curtain. To a super empath, every human being is born equal, and no amount of status, money, or loud-mouthed arrogance changes that fundamental truth. This radical belief in equality is like poison to a narcissist. When a narcissist tries to flex their superiority or belittle someone to make themselves feel big, the super empath doesn't just sit back and watch. They won't hesitate to point out the narcissist's underlying insecurities with surgical precision. If the narcissist tries to use a power play or a condescending tone, the super empath will calmly dismantle the logic behind it, showing the narcissist that their behavior isn't impressive. It's actually quite transparent and desperate. They have a unique ability to ethically use the narcissist's own words and twisted logic against them to put an immediate stop to abusive behavior. The super empath doesn't just ignore the ego, they systematically shatter it by refusing to participate in the narcissist's fantasy. They don't argue, they don't plead, and they don't try to win a shouting match. Instead, they provide a cold, hard mirror. When a narcissist realizes that their usual tricks don't work, and that this person isn't buying the superior act, their false self begins to crack. The super empath knows that the narcissist's power only exists if you believe in it. And since the super empath is grounded in their own self-worth, they simply stop believing. By treating the narcissist like a regular person who is accountable for their actions, the super empath strips away the special status the narcissist craves, leaving the abuser with no choice but to face the reality they've been running from their entire lives. When you deal with a narcissist, you're essentially dealing with a person who is allergic to their own internal reality. They carry a massive amount of self-loathing, shame, and chaos inside them, but because their ego is too fragile to handle those feelings, they have to put them onto someone else. This is what we call projection. Everything a narcissist says about you, calling you selfish, crazy, incompetent, or a liar, is actually a confession of how they feel about themselves. It is a desperate, frantic attempt to offload their own internal mess onto you so that they can feel clean for a few moments. To an unhealed person, these insults feel like personal attacks that require a defense. But a super empath sees this entire process for what it really is, a psychological vomit session. They understand that the narcissist isn't actually talking to them. They are talking at them, using them as a human garbage can for their unwanted emotions. The reason a super empath is so dangerous to a narcissist is that they simply don't take the bait. They don't take the insults personally because they have done the deep internal work to know exactly who they are. When you have a solid, unbreakable sense of self-worth, a narcissist's lies have nowhere to land. They just slide off like water on a raincoat. The super empath looks at the narcissist not as a powerful predator, but as a developmentally stunted child trapped in an adult's body. They recognize that while the narcissist might have the vocabulary of a grown-up, their emotional maturity stopped developing somewhere in early childhood. Seeing them through this lens changes everything. It's hard to be offended by the venom of someone you realize is just having an adult-sized temper tantrum because they can't handle their own feelings of inadequacy. This shift in perspective allows the super empath to deflect the venom instantly. When the narcissist starts the blame shifting and the gaslighting, the super empath doesn't get defensive, and they don't try to explain their side of the story, because they know the narcissist isn't interested in the truth. They recognize that there is absolutely zero basis in reality for these accusations. Instead of getting hurt, the super empath might just watch the outburst with a sense of calm curiosity, as if they are observing a strange biological phenomenon. By refusing to let the poison enter their system, the super empath forces the narcissist to sit with their own toxicity. The venom stays with the person who spat it, and the narcissist is left suffocating on the very mess they tried to throw away. This complete lack of emotional buy-in is what makes the super empath truly narcissist-proof. They stay grounded in their own truth, while the narcissist's lies dissolve into nothingness. Most people make the mistake of trying to fight a narcissist on an emotional level, but a super empath knows that is a losing battle. Narcissists thrive in emotional chaos. They want you screaming, crying, or frantically defending yourself because that noise hides their manipulation. A super empath, however, stops reacting and starts strategizing. They have done their homework and have observed the narcissist's behavior with the precision of a scientist. They know the predictable patterns, the love bombing, the devaluing, and the inevitable discard better than the narcissist even knows themselves. While the narcissist is busy trying to create a whirlwind of confusion, the super empath is sitting in the eye of the storm, calmly building a foundation of documentation and cold, hard facts. They don't rely on he said, she said arguments. They rely on evidence that cannot be disputed. The super empath treats every interaction like a high-stakes chess match. They don't just see the move the narcissist is making right now. They see the 3 moves the narcissist is planning to make next week. If the narcissist tries to rewrite history through gaslighting, the super empath simply pulls out the receipts, the saved texts, the recorded conversations, or the detailed journals they've been keeping. They don't use these to start a fight. They use them to end one. By refusing to be confused and staying anchored in what actually happened, the super empath effectively coordinates the beast. They lead the narcissist into traps where the only thing on display is the narcissist's own toxic behavior. The narcissist suddenly finds that their usual smoke and mirrors are being blown away by a fan of pure, documented truth. This level of strategy is what truly terrifies a toxic person. A narcissist can handle an angry victim, but they cannot handle a calculated opponent who stays 3 steps ahead. The super empath doesn't waste energy on explaining their feelings to someone who doesn't care. Instead, they use their energy to build a case, set their exit strategy, or protect their assets. They stay calm, they stay quiet, and they wait for the narcissist to trip over their own own lies. By the time the narcissist realizes the game has changed, the super empath has already won. They have exposed the truth of the abuser's behavior, not just to themselves, but often to the world, simply by letting the narcissist's own actions speak for them. This isn't just about winning an argument, it's about total psychological victory. Becoming a super empath isn't some rare divine gift handed out to a lucky few, nor is it a superpower you're simply born with. It is a high-level skill set, a psychological armor forged in the fires of deep, intentional healing. If you find yourself constantly drained by toxic people, you have to realize that most empaths are actually survivors of complex trauma. Somewhere along the line, usually starting in childhood, you were conditioned to believe that your value lies in how much you can do for others. You were trained to prioritize the feelings, needs, and whims of everyone else at your own expense. This people-pleasing is actually a survival mechanism, a way to keep the peace in an unstable environment. To break this cycle and become a super empath, you must perform a radical internal audit. You have to stop being an unlimited giver. You must accept the hard truth that takers have no internal off switch. They will take until there's absolutely nothing left of you, and then they will blame you for being empty. The first step to being narcissist-proof is learning to divert that massive flow of love and care away from the parasites and back toward yourself first. Real healing starts when you begin to explore your identity far beyond the surface level of your job, your social status, or your hobbies. You have to go deeper than what you do and find out who you are. This requires a level of radical self-acceptance that most people are afraid to face. It means looking at your wounds, your fears, and your history without flinching. When you truly understand your self-worth, you stop looking for others to tell you what you're worth. You become your own source of validation. When you know exactly who you are, including your flaws, your mistakes, and your strengths, you take away the narcissist's power to define you. They can no longer use your deficiencies against you because you've already accepted them. You are no longer a target because there are no hidden wounds left for them to poke. When a narcissist tries to shame you or gaslight you, it doesn't work because you are grounded in a self-concept that they didn't build and therefore cannot break. Once you reach this stage of radical self-truth, you are no longer operating in survival mode. You aren't reacting out of fear or a desperate need to be liked. Instead, you are responding from a place of power. You become narcissist-proof for one simple reason. You are no longer a viable source of supply. Narcissists are looking for a mirror to reflect their fake greatness or a sponge to soak up their toxic shame. A super empath refuses to be either. When you stand in your power, you become their kryptonite. They can feel your boundaries from a mile away, and they realize that their usual tricks won't just fail, they will be exposed. By choosing yourself, you effectively shut the door on the beast. You aren't just a survivor anymore. You are a master of your own emotional landscape. Which of these 5 traits we've discussed today are you working on right now in your own life? Is it setting those ironclad boundaries, or are you still working on seeing through the mind games? Share your progress and your stories in the comments below. Your insight might be the exact light someone else needs to find their way out of the darkness. Let's build a community of survivors who are becoming too strong to be manipulated. Let the healing not just begin, but continue every single day.